the most dangerous person in the room is never the loudest one. It was a Friday night. A charity gala in Manhattan. The kind of event where a single table costs more than most people make in a year. Crystal chandeliers, black suits, expensive perfume, and in the middle of it all, a man named Richard Cole, who believed that money made him untouchable. That night, he proved himself very, very wrong. Richard Cole was not just rich. He was the kind of rich that makes people uncomfortable. At 54, he had built a real estate empire worth over $3 billion. His name was on buildings. His face was in Forbes. He had staff, security, and a personal PR team that worked full-time just to make him look good. He walked into rooms like he owned them, because most of the time he did. The charity gala that evening was at one of his own hotels. 500 guests, CEOs, investors, politicians, media people. Everyone who mattered was in that room, and Richard loved it. This was his world. These were his people. Maya Johnson was not one of his people. Not in his eyes. Maya was 31. She had spent the last 6 years building a small but growing financial consulting firm from scratch. No family money, no connections. Just late nights, cold calls, and a mind that could read numbers the way most people read faces. She had been invited to the gala through a mutual contact. A small firm like hers getting a seat at a big table. The kind of opportunity you don't say no to. She arrived quietly, wore a simple lavender dress, found her table, introduced herself to the people around her. She was doing everything right. Then Richard Cole walked over. He didn't know her. He didn't try to. He looked at her dress, looked at her table placement near the edge of the room, and made a snap judgment the way powerful men sometimes do. Quickly, carelessly, and completely wrong. He was talking loudly with a group of investors nearby when one of them gestured toward Maya, mentioning she was in finance. Richard laughed, not a warm laugh, a dismissive one. He said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Finance? What does she manage? Someone's grocery budget?" The table went quiet. Maya looked up. She didn't flinch. She didn't go red. She just looked at him with steady eyes and said, "It's nice to meet you too." Richard didn't even register it. He turned back to his group and kept talking. To him, she was nobody. Background noise. But here's the thing about background noise. Sometimes it's the only thing left when everything else falls apart. What Richard didn't know, couldn't know, because he never bothered to ask, was exactly who Maya Johnson was. 6 months before that gala, Maya's firm had been hired quietly through a third-party intermediary to audit the financial structure of a large investment portfolio. It was sensitive work, the kind that required confidentiality agreements and closed doors. She had spent 4 months going through documents, running numbers, cross-referencing reports. What she found was not clean. There were inconsistencies, gaps between what was reported publicly and what the actual cash flow looked like behind closed doors. Shell companies, misdirected funds. A paper trail that, if followed carefully, pointed to something that regulators would be very, very interested in. The portfolio she had been auditing belonged to a holding group with ties to 3 major investors. Maya had already prepared a confidential report. She had not yet decided what to do with it. Then Richard Cole poured his coffee on her. Not literally, though the metaphor is almost too perfect. What he did was pour humiliation on her in front of 500 people, laughed at her, dismissed her, made sure everyone in earshot knew he thought she was beneath him. Maya drove home that night in silence. She didn't cry. She didn't call a friend to vent. She just sat with it. That specific feeling of being looked through, like you're made of glass, was something a lot of people know. And most of the time, there's nothing you can do about it. You just carry it. But Maya wasn't carrying anything anymore. 3 days later, she submitted her report. Not to the press, not to social media. She submitted it through the proper legal channel, directly to the SEC, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, with a full documentation package that took her team 2 weeks to compile. She didn't do it because of Richard's comment. She's said that clearly in the months that followed. She had been wrestling with the decision before the gala, but something about that night clarified things for her. When you see someone behave with that much carelessness, that kind of arrogance, it removes the last layer of doubt. The report landed on the right desk. Within weeks, an investigation opened quietly. By month 2, federal subpoenas had gone out. By month 4, the story broke. And when it did, the name at the center of it, the name connected to the holding group, connected to the investment portfolio, connected to everything Maya had documented, was Richard Cole. Not directly, not in a way that meant he went to prison that day. These things are slow and complicated, and lawyers cost money for a reason. But his name was in the filing. His signature was on documents. His holding company was named in the investigation. And in a world where reputation is currency, that was enough. 3 of his major investment partners pulled out within 30 days. 2 banks froze credit lines pending the investigation. His PR team, the one he paid full-time to make him look good, quit. A hotel deal he had been closing for 2 years collapsed overnight. The Forbes profile that had been in progress shelved. In 6 months, Richard Cole went from untouchable to radioactive. He never knew who filed the report. That information is protected. He probably still doesn't know. He probably never connected it back to the woman in the lavender dress at table 14 who he made a joke about in front of investors who are no longer returning his calls. There's a study from Harvard Business School, it's been referenced in leadership research for years, that found arrogant leaders consistently underestimate the people they dismiss. Not just occasionally, consistently. The bias is built in. When we decide someone is beneath us, we stop processing information about them accurately. We stop seeing them as a threat. We stop seeing them at all. Richard Cole stopped seeing Maya Johnson the moment he looked at her dress. That was his mistake. Not the comment, not the laugh. The mistake was the blindness that came before all of it. The decision, made in 2 seconds, that she was nobody worth knowing. Maya never went public with her story. She didn't need to. She didn't post anything. Didn't give interviews. Didn't do what most of us would probably want to do. Shout it from a rooftop. Make sure everyone knew. She just went back to her work. Her firm grew. The story of Richard Cole's investigation became a footnote in financial news. She had already moved on. That's the part that stays with me. Not the revenge, if you can even call it that. What stays with me is the silence. The way she sat with what happened, made a clear-headed decision, did the right thing, and then let the results speak for themselves. She didn't need the credit. She didn't need him to know. She just needed it to be done. The most powerful thing you can do to someone who underestimates you is exactly what Maya did. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic. Just show up, do the work, and let reality correct their mistake for them. You don't have to fight to be seen. Sometimes you just have to be real while everyone else is performing. Richard Cole performed his power. For 500 people that night and thought he won the room. Maya Johnson walked out of that room with everything she needed and never looked back. Watch the next video on screen. It's one you don't want to skip.